So, if any of you are wondering why it's been so long since my last visual novel review, like over a year, it's because of the series I'm reviewing today. It's not a particularly long series, my actual playtime was 44 hours, but I ended up taking multiple extended breaks from it. Why? Because it's really freaking gory and dark. One of the earliest scenes you get while reading the novel, viewer discretion is advised, is a guy chopping up and then eating his own fingers, with a few too many sound effects. And it just goes downhill from there. It makes something like Higurashi or Yumi Neko look like a romp through a flowery field by comparison. That being said, I did finally get through it, and it definitely has its merits. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present Chaos Child. Chaos Child is the thematic sequel to Chaos Head, and the fourth entry in the science adventure series by 5B, Nitro Plus, and Chiyomaru Studio, meaning it also takes place in the same fictional universe as Steins Gate and Robotics Notes. That being said, you don't need to have read any of those to follow this story. The gist of the plot is this. 6 years before the start of the story, there was a flash of light and a big earthquake occurred, which traumatized a lot of kids. Most of those kids now go to Heikyo Academy, and our protagonist, Takeru, along with his best friend and the heroines, are part of the Heikyo newspaper club. One day, Takeru decides that it would be a great idea to start investigating a string of bizarre murders for the newspaper, and somehow gets access to crime scenes that he really shouldn't have been able to. What follows then is what you see in every horror movie ever. Hey, that haunted mansion / cursed rings / in this case, crime investigation looks really dangerous. Maybe we should stay the hell away, says the sensible side character. Nah, it's fine. What's the worst that could happen, says the dumb protagonist. And then of course, the worst literally happens. What follows then in Chaos Head is an unhealthy mix of mystery, psychological horror, graphic descriptions of gruesome deaths, and some slice of life comedy too, which somehow doesn't feel at all out of place with the rest of the story. I won't be giving any more description than that because there's a lot of plot twists in the stories that I'd rather not ruin. The biggest thing that kept me reading through all of Chaos Child's disturbing bits was the characters. Any character that has a unique character sprite in Chaos Child is really well developed. Even the more minor characters. Like, let's take Ito. At first glance, he's just the perverted best friend character. But he's so much more than that. He's more mature than the protagonist, often acts as a voice of reason for him, and he contributes significantly to solving the mystery of the story. I genuinely cared about him, which is not something I can say about pretty much any other character I've seen fill that role. Another example would be Kunasato, who, despite not being one of the heroines, is a complex character with a well-developed backstory. She has her own motives and goals not directly related with the main conflict of the story, and everything I learned about her through the course of the story just made me want to know more. Honestly, it feels like she could easily be the protagonist of her own visual novel. As much as I have praise for the side characters, I have even more for the main ones. Our protagonist, Takeru, starts out with a bit of, I'm so much better than everyone else because of my search for the truth, as an attitude, internally, while also being incredibly socially awkward externally. Through the course of the story, though, we see him undergo a great deal of character growth, so by the end, instead of being a mix of amusing and annoying, I found myself thinking, damn, I have serious respect for Takeru. The heroines are also great, and I could gush about them for hours, but for brevity's sake, the key point is that they're written in such a way that you really care about them and hope that things will turn out alright for them, which is what will get you through this story. Well, aside from the characters, there are a number of other things I quite like about Chaos Child. For one, its mystery is on point. Things are nicely set up for the reader to be able to come up with theories as the story progresses, and the plot twists that happen are either unexpected, or if you are able to predict them, then you feel good about being able to figure it out in advance. At no point did I ever think, well, that was obvious, nor did I ever think, where the hell did that come from? The villain, pulling the strings behind the mystery, is also brilliant. They are alternately pitiable, hateable, empathetic, and scary as hell. And the cherry on top is that their motives make perfect sense from their perspective. On the far opposite side of the spectrum, the humor in the lighter parts of the series was also done pretty well. The protagonists' idle daydreams and delusions are a great source of comedy fodder, as is the way the cast bounces off each other. When it decides to do the whole school life comedy thing, Chaos Child honestly does a better job than a lot of stories that have that as their primary focus. The most obvious thing that will turn some people away from this series is that it can be overly gory. If you're not okay with seeing some people die in really effed up ways, then you probably shouldn't read the series. That's not the only problem with the series though, in fact it wouldn't even be my main one. You see, Chaos Child has a true ending that requires you to go through all the character routes before getting to it. And I'm fine with this type of setup when all the character routes either have satisfying endings on their own, or build up the central story of the game. Two of the character routes in Chaos Child, though, fulfill neither of those requirements. One of the two I'd be willing to give a free pass to, because hey, at least it explores some interesting concepts. The other one though, bleep it. Bleep it 7 ways sideways. Its plot is boring, contributes nothing to the mystery of the series, and it doesn't even develop its heroine that much. You could easily remove the entire character route without really impacting the story at all. All that would be okay though, if at least its ending was satisfying. But nope. Its ending is essentially one giant FU to the reader. Seriously, the heroine of that route gets a better ending in every route other than her own. The other gripes I have are more minor. One is how the skipping system works. Instead of allowing you to skip from choice to choice like Fate Stay Night does, or having a decision flowchart like in Island, if you want to get to a new route in Chaos Child, you get treated to a lovely seizure-inducing experience as you skip through previously read text to select a new set of choices. I know this problem is hardly unique to Chaos Child, but seriously, why is this still a thing? Fate came out in 2004, and is hardly an unknown series. Chaos Child came out a decade later. Surely it could have copied Fate's system so that we don't have to waste time with this. The last gripe I have is that this series is not easy to play without looking at an online guide. First of all, the game never actually tells you the keys you need to press to trigger positive or negative delusions, this game's choice system. There is literally a Steam guide someone had created to explain that. Secondly, there is no clear way to figure out which set of delusions will lead to any given character route short of trial and error, or turning to an online guide. Finally, in one segment, you have to put a bunch of pins on a map in correct locations or you get a bad end, and said map wasn't translated into English. So once again, unless you can read Japanese, you need to turn to an online guide. Let me be quite frank, if you are at all squeamish, then don't read Chaos Child. I still feel a bit sick thinking about some of how the murder victims died. If you've got a thick skin or you're a masochist though, hey, Chaos Child's story and characters are pretty great, so it's probably worth checking out. Also, if enough people actually buy Chaos Child in English, then maybe someday its spin-off/sequel, Chaos Child Love Choo Choo, will actually get an English language translation. I can only hope. Anyways, if you've already read this and are looking for something similar, Steins Gate or Yumi Neko are both solid picks, if you somehow haven't already had a chance to read either yet. And otherwise, you could always check out Swan Song if you like the graphic side of Chaos Child. Anyways, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this review. Cheers!